Welcome to the Brett Davis Podcast.
Well, good evening, everybody. Another great show. Somebody that I've heard about for a long time from a mutual friend, Dr. Rob, of course. All these doctors, Dr. Tony, Dr. Rob, and there's just me, Brett. This gentleman is Dr. Tony Brooks. He is an author, a phenomenal chiropractor, which we're going to hear more about that because based on his story, I want to hear more about how he got into that. He was an Army Ranger, humanitarian, speaker. What else can I say? Father, great husband.
Those are the ones that matter the most.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think it puts things in perspective, right?
100%.
I agree. So how long were you in the Rangers?
I spent 4 years in the 2nd Ranger Battalion up at Fort Lewis, Washington.
I
4 years was enough.
I appreciate your service. We're very heavily support the military. We love our military. And I think that we need to do more for people in military just because it's just the right thing. And I think that there's just so many benefits of people that are not familiar with, maybe even younger people that are going to watch the show tonight, hearing about your story and, of course, about the book you wrote called Leave No Man Behind, of course. What would you tell somebody out there that's listening that may be thinking about military and they're not sure what a career, what would you advise them?
I'd say, yeah, definitely should be on your list. So when I left high school, I had no intentions of ever joining the military. It wasn't even in my playbook.
Interesting.
And I think that was a mistake looking back on it. I think my path was to go to college and get a degree. That's just what I was supposed to do, apparently. But 9/11 kind of shifted my path there. And I think it was one of those moments that a lot of us kind of evaluated what we were doing at the moment.
So where were you at the time when 9/11 happened?
I was a freshman at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah. That school, from what I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I lived in Phoenix years ago. But at Tucson, I was familiar that the university was really very strong in medical.
That is correct.
And natural medicine too.
Yeah, and actually I wasn't even on that path at all at the time, but it is very known for their med school for sure.
And you were there. Isn't it interesting, the parallels, if you look back on things?
Oh, yes.
It was there. You weren't thinking about it, but it was kind of there. And you look back at it now and you're like, it was there the whole time.
A lot of things were there the whole time.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there's probably a lot more things as we go along. So you go into the Rangers, of course. Tell us what happened and tell us about this book for people who are not familiar, because there was a movie, of course, made out of that too. Leave No Man Behind. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, so my book chronicles the rescue operation for Marcus Luttrell and the recovery of a downed Chinook helicopter, Turbine 33, which was actually a rescue attempt to rescue Marcus Luttrell, who was known widely as the lone survivor. The movie by the same name, starring Mark Wahlberg, came out in, gosh, I don't even know the year anymore. It's about 6 years ago.
It's terrible, isn't it? I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it was probably about, might even be, 5, I think 5 or 6 years. Have you met Mr. Wahlberg?
I never met Mr. Wahlberg.
I had the opportunity to meet him. Very nice, as he was a guest speaker at an event, and I happened to be there when he came in, and we talked for a little bit. But what a very nice, down to earth person. He's not the typical movie star that most people would probably think that he would be because of the movies. He's he blue jeans, t-shirt. A lot of the people that have been around his life have been around a long time, but I know he has a love for the military as well.
I've heard the same thing.
So tell me about the book, and tell it for people who are not familiar. So it's really fascinating just to hear you tell it. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the book kind of chronicles my journey into how I ended up on that mission. it happened to be my very first mission as an Army Ranger. I had only been a Ranger for 6 months when this all happened. I was on my first deployment in Bagram, Afghanistan. In fact, it was probably the slowest combat deployment of the 75th Ranger Regiment's, existence as far as the war on terror was concerned. And I was sitting there in Bagram Airfield near the end of my deployment when one of my team leaders basically kicked down one of our doors. And he said, "Get your you know what?" And we're going out. A helicopter just went down. And to us, that was like basically saying, your brother just got beat up in the alley. You better go out there and help him.
Sure. Well, it's one thing about the military. It's a brotherhood and sisterhood. It's everybody's family. And like all families, I mean, there's times where we don't always get along or agree with things, but when it comes down to it, and things are tough, family always seems to show up. Hopefully.
That is correct. I mean, these were Navy SEALs that were in trouble. We were Army Rangers, and like you said, we're a very tight-knit family, but Rangers and SEALs are always making fun of each other and, giving low blows to each other and, good-hearted picking at each other.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you go into this situation. You've been in the Rangers for 6 months, you said? This is your first time that you've ever been on a mission.
That's correct. First
Because
mission I'd ever been on.
with all the adrenaline that was going on, I mean, were you in the zone? Did you then not even really think about any of this stuff until afterwards?
I was young. I was very full of excellent training. I was kind of cocky. So I had no clue what was going down, really. All I knew was someone was in trouble and they called us to help. Of course I'm going to be there. So yeah, I didn't realize how grave of a situation it was until I was old and wise.
You're not that old. You are very wise. So you go into this situation, of course. What came out of that, and how did it change who you are today?
I'll tell you what, I've learned some of the best life lessons I could ever learn, and the hardest way too. I mean, to see America basically to their knees is what we saw on the battlefield. But all of us as a group bound together to get the job done. So I learned about teamwork. I learned about grit. I learned about determination. I learned that the power of peer pressure in a good way, in a very good way. I can't tell you how many times that we were walking onto that crash site. It was about a 4-mile walk, about 10,000 foot elevation gain in 4 miles.
Wow.
And on a map, that 4 miles was actually less. It was about a mile on the map, but the elevation was so steep that we traveled about 4. So you can imagine how much up and down we were doing. And I'll tell you, there were times that I was, telling myself that I can't go any further. I'm done. But I look to my left and to my right, and I see a bunch of Rangers that had no quit in them. And so I kept going. And, looking back on it, it's funny because I talked to all these guys when I wrote my book, talked to all my buddies, and every single one of them said, "Man, I can't tell you how many times I wanted to quit." And I thought they were doing great. I looked over to my left and my right, and I'd see guys that didn't look like they were tired. And I was dying. So the power of peer pressure, teamwork, all that stuff, I take that with me, into my clinic every single day to help patients.
How long ago, after your mission, how long did it take for you to put the book together?
Well, the mission was in 2005, and I didn't even start writing the book until 2020.
Wow.
So it took a very long time. I had notes, I had ideas of what I wanted to do for years and years and years. But honestly, I didn't have the courage to put it on paper.
Was it the courage, or was it maybe that maybe there's areas that you had tucked away that maybe you just didn't really want to think about and or maybe forgot about, and then all of a sudden as the process starts, these things start awakening?
I would say a little of both. I mean, definitely there were things that I needed to clarify because your memory gets foggy after so many years. Now, I took really good notes when I was out there. I did almost like a diary, which I'm very happy I did that because it really helped when I was writing. But um, a lot of it, yeah, you don't want to revisit because it's ugly, very
Right.
ugly. And then some of it was just, man, did that really happen in that order? That doesn't make any sense. And yeah, it did. You talk to enough people and you can kind of piece it all together.
So while you're doing the book and you have these memories and you have this like diary journal type thing, I'm sure you, like you said, you did reach out to some of your friends. Did they add some things in there that maybe you forgot about?
A lot.
Interesting.
Um, the funny part is when so you hear someone tell a story that you lived, you start to remember things that you thought you forgot. So you hear it enough times from enough people, and instantly you're like, "Wow, I don't know why I blocked that part out, but yeah, that I remember." So it's a fun process. I would recommend it to anyone who's been through. I mean, I think if anyone should do it at their life, but anyone that's been through trauma, certainly.
So you found that as a therapeutic tool.
Oh yeah, yeah. I finally put all of that trauma into bed, and I would say one of the big reasons that I wrote the book was I wanted my kids to have an idea what their dad did in the military.
Mhm,
So I didn't have many ways to tell them, and I certainly wasn't going to sit down and tell them this story. It's too gruesome and ugly.
mhm.
But for some reason, putting it on paper, it really, really comes out in a more meaningful way. I mean, you've probably had tough conversations in your life, and there were things that you wish you would have said, or things that
Sure.
you just couldn't say because it
Mhm,
would have turned into something that it shouldn't have been. Maybe a
mhm.
fight, maybe someone
Right.
get angry. Well, when you put it on paper, that that's ever someone else's interpretation.
So you do this book, never really thinking you were going to probably do a book. How did that come about that you decided to do the book?
The pandemic. I've been thinking about it forever, and I even got to the point where I had an agent and a writing partner and everything, but I never really pulled the trigger until everything started slowing down up in Seattle,
Mhm.
and they were shutting everything down. I was like, well, I've got a little extra time. Why not?
And you knocked it out.
I knocked it out in 90 days.
How many pages?
That's it. I don't even know how many pages it is. It's about 50,000 words.
Okay.
Um, but it took us, yeah, about 3 months to knock it out.
It's interesting when you get in the groove like that, the zone. There's another word, I forget what they call it, where you're just writing and your hand just kind of like doesn't stop. It's got your hand almost has a mind of its own. You're like, what's going on with this?
Yeah, and I was very, very diligent on what I was doing. I made a plan, and I said every day between this time, between 4 and 7 a.m., I'm going to be sitting in front of the computer writing, and that is it.
Wow. Wow.
And I did it every day.
That's a commitment
Yeah, I
because
said
nobody,
at least 1,000 words is what my goal was every day.
now that time, do you typically get up at that time, or was that the time that you figured nobody would bother you?
The latter. I don't
Okay.
normally. I get up early, but not that early.
Okay. So that was your drive.
I moved at that time because I'm busy, and
Mhm.
I have two young kids, and I have a wife and family and all that stuff. And that was the time they're all sleeping.
I understand that. I was
Yeah.
thinking the other day, I have a former football coach in high school and he happened to be our psychology teacher. The one year I think we were junior year, And he used to explain in this class, somehow he got on the topic of family time and how important it is. And he said, communication's everything. You can't just like come back from a bad day and not talk to your family. And, you have to be able to talk to your kids and spend time. So he would get up every morning and had a ritual that he would do because he found that he could get that done without, losing that quality time with his family. So I never forgot that. And now you're bringing it up. I kind of do the same thing. But so you write this book. Did you ever plan on being a speaker?
No, I was scared to death of speaking.
It's one of the hardest things to do, isn't it?
Oh, I was to the point where I remember taking a class in junior college, trying to break that fear. This was before I went to the Army. Long story, I left Arizona, came home, enlisted, and they said, well, you can't leave for another 6 months. I'm like, well, I'm not going to go back to Arizona for 6 months, so I'll just take some junior college classes until then. And one of them was public speaking. And I quit. I quit that class. I dropped it.
Really?
Because I couldn't, it was not my thing. And now I do it all the time.
Well,
let
me ask you this without putting too much pressure on you.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the class or was it the instructor? Because that can make a difference too, right?
Yeah,
Right,
I think
instructor can make a difference too.
I'd say it's neither. It was me.
Okay.
It was all me. It was just for whatever reason, that one thing, that was my weakness. Let's get in front of a crowd. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's not an easy thing. I mean, it's just I've been told that it's one of the hardest things, one of the biggest fears most people have is public speaking.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
So you did the book, and of course, right away they're like, "We need to go out and talk about the book."
Of course, yeah.
And at that point, how were you? How were you when you first started doing it again? Was it nerve-wracking? Was it? How did it come to you? How did you feel?
Like I said, I don't know if it's because I'm older. I don't know if I don't know the reason that it wasn't hard anymore. I think all I'm doing is telling the story that I lived. So for me, it's really simple. I mean, I tell this story all the time, and it just came easily. And then the more I did it, the more I liked it, the more impact I was seeing people were taking, and it became addictive.
Well, you were helping yourself by, of course, with the book and then talking about it, which a lot of men have problems talking about their weaknesses and their challenges. I think as we get older, we realize, maybe it's our wives that teach us this or our kids, or maybe it's just being older. I don't know what it is, but we learn to realize that it's therapeutic to talk about things, especially if it helps other people.
Yeah. I don't know when I realized that, but absolutely 100%. Like, I think talking about war in general is a good thing, so that people realize that, hey, Hollywood really makes it look cool. And when you actually get out there, it's not as cool as you think. Real people are risking their lives out there, and they have to make hard decisions when you're in war, and you have to make them real fast. So speaking about it, I think, really helps people understand that, hey, this guy, I mean, I'm an Army Ranger, right? So people look up like, oh, he did some real hard stuff. And when I say, you might want to think twice about jumping into war, people listen. Like, he's been there multiple times. So I enjoy speaking and getting up there and spreading the word and really helping people have a better experience on this planet. It's really what it comes down to.
Well, you are making a huge impact, and we're very blessed to have you, and we're glad you're on the show because I think there's things that we are very getting involved with. Also, we're going to be honoring in San Diego some of the top people in military that are doing day in and day out type situations that they may not think they deserve it. A lot of people in the military don't. They don't. That's not the reason they do the job. But we're also going to be honoring people in law enforcement and firefighters, and I think that that's an area of our country that, to me, I can't imagine not saying thank you. I know it. I mean, it's just I appreciate it. I know a lot of people do too. And I know I don't think there's enough. I mean, even at a grocery store, if you can go up and say thank you for what you've done. I mean, even the littlest thing like that, because it is very selfless. It's not going to pay $1 million a year, those types of jobs. It's done because people have a passion. They love what they're doing and they love serving. I mean, anything else you could add to that?
Yeah, I think most of the people that serve in law enforcement, military, even healthcare, I would say that most of these people really their love language is that they get to help somebody. And I've always known that I like to help people, but it took me it took me going to war to figure it out. Like
Wow.
the most impactful thing I did in the war, I mean, I was in the Battle of Ramadi. I helped rescue Marcus and Turbine 33. The most impactful thing I learned was, man, did I really get a high off of helping others? That's the best thing I could get. And so it's kind of, we say it's selfless, but I say I learned how to be more selfish. I learned how to serve myself while serving others at the same time. So when someone says thank you for your service to me,
Mhm.
I almost feel guilty. Like, oh man, you know how much I learned from all that service? Like I learned that I love to help people. It's a weird thing, but that's
No,
who.
it makes sense. You've got a good heart, and most of our people in military and the groups that we just talked about do. I know them all, a lot of them, and they're good. They're solid people. People I admire. So the book, you're happy with the way that it came out?
It came out better than I could have imagined.
That's a
I mean,
lot. Say from you, from somebody of your care, I can really I've kind of sized you up a little bit. Sorry to do that. But
everyone does.
you have a to me, you're everything you do, you put excellence into it. You're about detail. Am I correct?
That is 100% true.
So if you say that, then I 100% believe what you're saying. And so you're happy it came out better than you thought, right?
Yeah, so I thought it was going to be a straight history book, and I had a co-author that helped me really turn it in from just a plain history book to more of like, hey, this is what people experience in war.
Mhm.
This is a firsthand account. This is his thoughts. This is his feelings. This is something that you're not going to get anywhere else. You can read history anywhere, but this is history, and you're going to feel what he felt. And I didn't think I would be able to pull that off, and he helped me. He pulled it out of me. He really did. That's
That's
Bob Welch. So if you read anything from Bob Welch, he's incredible.
okay. So the book's usually typically better than the movie, is what I've been told. In any case, not I'm not saying in your circumstance.
Mhm.
What would you say in this case?
I would say, well, my book wasn't in the movie because they didn't know about it yet.
Okay.
The rescue in the movie was actually wrong.
Okay.
So
So you agree the book is always typically better because it's more factual most of the time.
I would say yes, but I would say Marcus's book was much better than the movie as well.
Okay.
Marcus Luttrell, because he wrote The Lone Survivor. So yeah, I'd say generally say that's probably true, pretty much across the board.
I can't imagine. I mean, somebody of your, when you put your heart and your soul into this book, and you're very happy with the work that you put in, which again says a lot. And there's just things that come out, and you're like, "Oh my god, is that the way it happened? Oh no, no, that's not the way it went down." Or that's it. Just they can't take what's up here and
No,
bring it out here. A lot of times, it's really hard to do that.
no,
But what?
I will say this: they did a really good job in that movie.
Okay,
It's probably one of the better like depictions of war that I've ever seen. To the point where the even the locations that they picked for that movie, it's like, damn, that really looks like that.
okay.
They did a good job.
Okay, so they got that hammered away. Let me ask you this on another subject, going in the in the same category. What other war movie out there would you say? Name a couple other ones that are pretty like that you've seen kind of really hit it right on that you think is
Well,
pretty
I
realistic?
so I'm in the modern war era, so I would say that's all I really know.
Okay.
The Black Hawk Down was the one that actually motivated me to kind of become a ranger.
Okay.
And having done it, I'll tell you, that was very real. And I know
Okay.
the guys that were there, and they all say the same thing, that they feel like they're there when they're watching it.
Okay. Which is a great compliment to the person that makes the movie because you can't do any better. It's like your book. You can't do any better than that.
Yeah, no, the Black Hawk Down and the Lone Survivor did pretty darn good job.
Okay. So you're doing this public speaking gig now, and you're also we're going to get into the chiropractic thing because I think it's fascinating. Tell us about how many of these you do a year because you're apparently in very high demand. And what are typically the subjects?
The typical leadership, team building, those are the two big ones that I do the most. And I really I limit how many I do because my passion is helping patients. So speaking wise, I think this year I have I think 6, and next year I'm probably going to do 1 a quarter. And I have to really really pick and choose because I get requests monthly.
Oh, I bet.
So I have some that are booked 3 and 4 years out already. So I'm really really I want to pick an organization that I believe in. Like I love speaking to businesses that really are mission driven, and smaller businesses, of course, I love. But to be fair, I can't afford to go do a lot of small businesses anymore.
Sure.
I'll do short things for them for free, just because it's a passion. But
Mhm.
I'm not going to do a full program for anyone besides usually the bigger boys out there. Unfortunately, at this point,
Have you done anything as far as speaking for the chiropractic associations at all and have combined the two together?
I actually don't speak in my profession. Um, I like to speak outside of the profession, and I'll be honest. I'll say I don't think my profession can afford me anymore. They, it's. I mean, I just most of the speakers in my profession speak for free, and
Really?
they do. And I love my family too much to be
And
away from them.
I think that's right on the dime, and I love hearing that. It takes a lot of people to uh, do things for free for the longest time to realize that they need to put value on what they're doing, and you're already there. That's good
Yeah,
because you got to take care of your family.
yeah. And I mean, I do free things still, but I'm not going to spend a 5-hour program uh,
Sure.
without it being something that I pour my heart and soul into.
So, tell me about the chiropractic profession you decided to go into. When did this happen?
Oh, that's a fun story. My wife's gonna love this. So I get out of the military, and I end up applying to University of Southern California. It's my dad's alma mater, my grandfather's alma mater. So I'm like, sure, I'll apply there. I got in initially when I graduated high school, and I reapplied when I got out of the army, and I got a letter back that said, "We're sorry, you've been out of school too long. You need to prove to us that you can still do it." And I was really, I mean, I was pretty angry about that.
Well, yeah. So you had some credits that they weren't going to accept.
Yeah, so they would accept them. They just didn't believe that I still had the same academic standards that I had before the military.
Okay, which is ridiculous.
That's what it was, and it wasn't just them; it was other schools too. But
Which
that's
I
the
don't
one I really
understand
want to go to.
because I mean the military is all about discipline and
It's
then some,
mind blowing to me.
right?
So I was angry, and what I did was I applied at the local junior college in actually just north of LA. It was College of the Canyons,
Okay.
and said I'm just going to do 1 year. I'm going to reapply. And I did 1 year, and I got a 4.0, and reapplied, and they let me in. So I'm at USC, and I'm complaining daily about hurting.
Oh,
I was hurting everywhere.
really?
I beat my body up pretty bad. Being in the 75th Ranger Regiment, they do everything harder than most humans can take.
Okay.
And it broke me down. And when I got out, I was hurting really bad. Back problems mostly. And I had gone to orthopedic surgeons, physical therapists, acupuncturists. What else did I do? Psychic. I mean, I went to everything, just trying to figure out someone's got to be able to help me.
So did you have surgeries during that time?
I did not, but I did have many recommendations to have spinal fusion. And in fact, I had 3. And I just wasn't buying it. It hurt and I complained a lot, but I felt like there had to be something else. I told all the doctors that there has to be something else. And they said, well, if PT didn't work, then there's not really anything else. And it was finally my wife that just said, she looked at me, and she's been a chiropractic patient her whole life. She said, why don't you go see my chiropractor? And I kind of looked at her and I said, are they even real doctors? Like, I mean,
That you said.
yeah, I said it. I said, I don't go to those quacks.
Wow.
And she looked at me and she said, why would you say that? I said, aren't they quacks? No. And she said, why do you think that? And I said, actually, I don't know. I think I just heard that. And I
Okay.
just believed it.
Okay.
I didn't have a reason. I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. So I went, and I didn't really give the guy a shot, to be honest. I thought he was going to be a quack. But the guy helped me out, and he helped me out fast. And once I realized that my belief system nearly drove me to have spinal fusion, I really kind of changed my whole mindset on a lot of things.
How old were you at the time, you think, about?
I was 25.
Okay.
So I just finally grown up right about that time.
It's a good age.
Yeah, I was still a kid up until that point. But yeah, he helped me out, and I decided, you know what? I really like helping people, and I was pre-med at the time. I said, I'm going to go be a chiropractor. That looks like those guys have a lot of fun. I mean, no, people aren't dying in their offices. And, they generally, people like to go see them. Like, it's a good experience.
Sure. I have to tell you, I've been going since I was probably 10,
Yeah.
12. And same thing. I had things going on with wrists and sports injuries and things as a kid and all the way through my life. And I actually I probably seen more chiropractors than I'd seen doctors. And I had better results with less complications.
I mean, there's very few complications that can happen.
Right?
And it's wonderful. Like, once my mind was open and I actually came to terms with my false belief system that I had created, I changed a lot in my life. I changed everything about my life. My whole perspective on health, my whole how I go about my daily business. Like, am I going to do this or am I going to do that? I'm going to choose the one that's healthier. Like, that's how I will live. That's how we raise our kids.
Good.
And yeah, so it changed my life drastically, and I am so grateful.
When I look at you, I see a very at peace, relaxed individual. You seem like you're really, whatever you're doing, which you just kind of explained. If anybody's been watching the show, you know, chiropractic is not just a occupation; it's a lifestyle. Correct?
Oh yeah, it's my entire life. We live it every single day. I have a chiropractic table in my house. My kids get adjusted every week. My wife gets adjusted probably multiple times a week, and we live our life with the perspective of we're going to make all our choices are based on health. Like, are we going to do this? Or are we going to do that? It's always the healthier option. Like,
Of course.
We spend a lot of time outdoors. We eat fresh foods. We spent our biggest budget item is probably food.
Good. You look phenomenal. And how long have you been married now?
We got married in 2010. I don't even know what year it is. What year is it?
23. 13 years?
13 years. You got it.
So, she brought you into what I think women are way more intelligent, by the way, than we are.
Yes.
I think
Well,
they
don't say that too loud, but yes.
well, my voice went down. Did you notice? But my wife's the same way. I mean, I have my own, preconceived thoughts and ideas on certain things, and she's turned me to believe some things that I never would have imagined. And I think it's the same it sounds like with you. And then, of course, you always want the best for your family. Have any of the kids thought about doing chiropractic at all and saying, "I want to do what dad's doing"?
I don't know. My kids are really young, 8 and 5. And
Sometimes they know.
yeah, they're funny. I mean, some days my daughter says yes, and other days she's going to be a truck driver. So,
Okay. Well, we need truck drivers. There's a shortage, big time short, and it's a good paying job.
yeah. And recently she's going to own her own restaurant. So,
Well, she has to get the food there somehow.
right.
So let me ask you this too. So you got all these things firing away. It sounds like you get a pretty good handle on everything. Is there anything else that you want to do that you haven't done yet?
Man, that's a good question.
Something that's been on your mind, or like maybe more traveling, maybe another book, maybe a documentary, maybe, something that can help mankind more.
I mean, I definitely have this vision of a nonprofit
That's a good idea.
that helps veterans transitioning out of the military into the civilian world, because I see it as a huge problem that these people come out with the most amazing training and mindset, and they get in the civilian world and they just get crushed.
Mhm.
And it's silly. It really is.
So that's actually interesting you say that, because that's one of the things that I'm working on.
All right. How do I help?
Seriously. I mean, this is a topic that comes up at least a couple times a week. And anybody that's in the military, here's the thing too. Not veering too far away, but because we're talking about military and getting out of the military and what you're going to do, and you probably are aware of this too, because it seems like we're on the same page with a lot of stuff, and we've never met, which is really cool.
The world works in mysterious ways, doesn't it?
Right, right. And so we have a problem in this country of trying to find jobs that are not all jobs that are out there require college. There's a lot of jobs out there. Sarah, what is it called, Sarah? When you don't go to college, you decide to do something, a trade
trade?
school. There you go. There's a lot of trades that are out there that pay really well, and they're good jobs. And there's a shortage of people. They're having to go to other countries to find people to do trades for our country. And it never made sense to me, because I'm thinking we have all these military veterans. Why don't we do more? I mean, I hear things are being done for them in the trades, but I wonder if it's being done as much as it should be or can be.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Like, I came out with some of the best leadership training you could ever imagine. I went to Ranger School. I was in the 75th Ranger Regiment. I went to war twice. I led a team in war. Like, I couldn't get a job in leadership in any company in America coming out as an enlisted, lower enlisted. Even though I could lead a team in combat, I couldn't lead a team in office suite. You kidding me? Like, so stuff like that. The transition is awful.
Says the people hiring, or you saying that?
The people hiring just don't understand that skill set. They don't know. They have no clue, like, how much leadership training I had. I could put it into a beautiful resume and explain in the civilian way what we did, and it's still not enough to them because they just don't have no clue.
Is there any way that, like when you went back to college, because this is something that I'm going to be digging more into, and I might reach out to you too, to get your thoughts on this,
Mhm.
because it's important that we do it. It's just the right thing to do. Is it possible that, like, when you go back to college, that there's some classes or something that you do where you get more credit? Let's say you have a life experience outside of school, and they're like, "Oh, wow, you did this and this. Well, we can apply this to your GED. We can actually credit you for a class for this." Is there something that they can do with military service and say, "Well, oh, wow, you did this and you did that while you were in the army." That can apply towards some credits.
So there are a lot of schools that do accept military schools as college credit.
Well, what about service? What about military service?
Service, I think they do give a small amount of credits for maybe some general education classes. Um, but even the schools you do in the military, there is some translation. It's not a really good one.
Okay.
It's
So
kind
there,
of
so it would be ideal to have somebody with a military background that's done the same thing and has applied themselves into becoming more adept at being a civilian.
yeah. I think it would require that person to probably be in the university system
Okay.
to influence them that way.
Well, this is something that I would love to work more on. I'd love to talk to you more about on at another time.
Mhm.
Is there anything out there that you would want to share or tell the audience? Maybe something you're feeling or something they should know. Some thought maybe it comes to mind.
Yeah, everyone always asks me. Um, well, they're always surprised. Like, how did you do? How'd you get through ranger training? How did you become a ranger? How did you physically? How did you do it? And I just look people in the eye and say, and I usually use a different set of words. I'll be kind here, but I say you can do hard stuff. Like you just got to do it. Just because you think you can't do it, you're gonna force yourself to fail. And I've always had the mindset of I could do anything, and I don't know if that was my parents. I'm sure it was partly them, um, but I never have. There's never anything that I started that I thought I was going to fail because I wouldn't have started.
Hmm.
And I truly believe that most people can do whatever the heck they want.
I think so too. I
It's
think so
usually
too.
between here that the problem is. It has nothing to do with the outside world.
Right. No, I agree with you too. How's your body holding up as far as pain now with all the knowledge and stuff that you're and the thing with pain, I know this about pain because I've gone through things. I was going to be a chiropractor at one time. That was on my list, and then the damn counselor talked me out of it.
That's not surprising to me.
I ended up owning 3 gyms and hiring chiropractors to come to work and do the things, that we did together, but, my grandfather was an herbologist, so we grew everything in our backyard, we grew, and he had different things from tea to cactuses to roots to herbs, so I grew up that way as a child. Did not realize when I got older that was very abnormal to
Yeah,
learn all those
awesome.
things, but my grandfather was a nutritionist, and, those were things that still to this day, I know things that I can do with herbs and plants in the backyard because it's just the way we were raised. But and where do prescriptions and pharmaceuticals come from? They come from plants,
Plants. Yep.
right? So, have you been able, with all the knowledge plus your passion for learning about all this stuff, are you constantly learning new things that to deal with the pain you've had?
Yeah, I mean, I'm most of the time I can work through my issues, whether that's exercise, whether that's the way I'm eating, chiropractic care. I have my own chiropractor. I do spinal decompression all the
Mhm.
time. I do that in my clinic as well.
Do you do
And
that with your hands, or do you have a machine?
the decompression's a machine,
Right.
and that's working on the spinal discs. 'Cause I have really
That's an amazing machine, by the way. I've seen it before. It's amazing.
it is if you have a disc issue, I I just tell people if you have a disc issue, this can change your life. You
I'm
got
very
to try it.
impressed. I'm very impressed with the technology that you're involved with it. I mean, it doesn't surprise me because you're quite the aficionado on detail. I can see you've got that down.
Sometimes that's a flaw, but yes.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's also, it's a passion, and it's something you really love to see. You like to help people. Now, here's another thing that's really been, because a lot of us are getting older. You're still very young, of course. You're just a kid, but uh, population is living. The older population is living longer, and I hear the younger population, a little below the baby boomers, under Generation X,
Yeah.
seems to be dying off. They don't anticipate their health to be as great as Generation X and the baby boomer generation. Can you talk a little bit about why that is? And then the other thing, what about anti-aging? What are your thoughts on anti-aging? And then
Yeah, so the lifespan thing I think makes perfect sense to me. I mean, you look at the Generation X, which is, I mean, they're mostly born in the 70s. So they're kids of hippies. And
I haven't
what do
heard that word.
kids do when you
Haven't heard that
shove
word.
stuff down their throat?
I haven't heard that word in a long time. Hippie.
Yeah. So what do they do? What do kids do when you shove things down their throat too much? They rebel.
Mhm.
So they're the kids of hippies who really let them do whatever they wanted. And our society changed rapidly to the point where our food supply is not the same that it used to be.
No.
Everything was mass produced.
Mhm.
We have commercial farms, local farms are, I mean, they're coming back, and thank goodness, but we've destroyed a lot of our farmland in our country.
You know, the state of California is offering all the farmers money to buy their land.
That doesn't surprise me.
They don't want them farming
Um,
because it's not good for
Scary.
the. Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, people get really sensitive when I talk about it, but I mean, I know for a fact because my friends in the farming industry, they're like, we're getting all kinds of emails and letters that they want to buy our land, and they just don't want us growing anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you can go off the deep end into lots of conspiracy theories there, but I would say a lot of it is environmental related,
Yeah, I think so too.
and water runoff is a big one.
Okay, yeah,
Uh,
that's what I've heard.
yeah, they're worried about erosion and environmental
Sure,
runoff into the oceans. But
but we need farms. We need farms. I
I
mean,
I agree.
so I mean, these farms. A lot of these farms have been around for many, 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 many years and family generations. And I don't want to get my products from another country.
Yeah, and farming practices at big farms are usually about the bottom line, not about quality. So
Mhm.
I think that's a big reason why we're seeing a decline is that 70s, 80s babies, they grew up in the McDonald's on every street corner era.
Super size me.
You got it. And I mean, I still talk to people that are in my generation. I was born in the early 80s, and they don't cook. They don't cook in their house. And they complain about food prices and all these things. And I'm like, start cooking and it won't be as bad.
I love to
but
cook.
but I think a lot of it has to do with food,
Mhm.
and a lot of it has to do with exercise. We become very sedentary as a population. People, I mean, you can go out and, I mean, in the Northwest, this is a prime example. It'd be a sunny day in the Northwest, and I'd go outside with my kids to like play catch with my son or whatever, and I'd be the only people outside. What's
Wow,
going on out here?
strange. And you weren't on your cell phones.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
I won't get you into the subject.
So yeah,
So
getting movement and food supply, I think, are the big ones. We
okay,
don't move enough, and we eat horrible foods.
yeah.
Um, and then the other thing was, I think you were talking about anti-aging or longevity type.
Well, I mean, I would think just for the expense of keeping yourself healthy, that chiropractic and nutrition and just exercise. Of course, exercise probably has to be based on the person's body, age, and getting a good program based on what your challenges are, what you're trying to do. Because I think there's not a one size fits all. I mean,
No,
nutrition pretty much is, even that is different now because everybody's bodies are different to things. But the lifestyle you're living, I see, it will have a benefit for anti-aging, and I think that's a lot of things that people are looking for are ways to do a lot of these things, not break their pocketbook.
Yeah, and I always reiterate to people when I talk to patients, you're either going to pay now or you're going to pay later
Mm-hmm.
for your health. If you pay now, you get to choose what you want to do. You get to choose your foods. You get to choose this. But if you pay later, now you're going to have to pay the medical doctor to bail you out.
And hopefully it won't shorten your life.
And yeah, and you may not be able to. You're right.
So anti-aging, of course, is the big thing right now. I'm also doing a new show on anti-aging with, it's called Muscle and Fitness. It used to be a magazine with Joe Weider before in the old days. And they've got about 17 million hits a month on that site.
Wow.
So I'm going to put some of this interview on that new show that I'm doing with them, because I think it's important to talk more about anti-aging. I want to focus on just good overall health, and chiropractic to me is part of that antidote.
I agree. If you can't move correctly, you're not going to get a good work, or you're not going to get as good of a workout as you could. Your food's not going to impact your body the same way that it would if you were moving correctly.
Absolutely.
I mean, they play on each other. You're going to be more hungry for healthier foods if your body's working appropriately. It is a lifestyle. I agree with you, and I mean that's what we do in our clinic. We bring people in and we teach them how to live healthier.
Well, I look forward to meeting you in person and maybe coming down to your clinic one of these times. I get to Texas occasionally.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
thank
in
you.
San Diego a lot. That's one of my favorite places in the world.
Well, all right. We have two offices right now. Where we're talking to you from is Coronado.
Okay.
So Coronado, I don't know if you've been to Coronado before.
I have.
It's a great place, and home of the seals. We have a lot of seals here.
Yes, you do.
And they're all over the place. So I feel pretty safe. But thank you for your service. Thank you for what you're doing with health. Thank you for your book. Thanks for all the things that you do. You've really gotten a lot out of your life in a very short period of time. You've accomplished a lot. And it's been an honor having you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. And I hope everyone listening got something out of it. And if not, you can always reach out to me, and I'd be more than willing to help you out.
Let's see what we can do with our brothers and sisters in the military that need to transition.
I think it's a very, very important topic. Millions of people out there that could be serving us all as well as themselves, and they're stuck in a rut.
I agree. Do you do like the trades on a final note? You do like trade schools?
Absolutely. Yeah. I tell my son all the time, you don't have to go to college. You can pick a skill. You can master a skill.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Brooks, thank you so much. God bless. Take care of your family. Take care of everything you're doing. And thank you for being on the show.
Yeah. God bless you. Thank you.
You take care. And of course, I want to thank my sponsors, Attorney King, Marina Teal. My gosh, we've got so many. We've got Brett's Naturals. We have Sequan Casino Spa and Resort. Bonificetta, the garage, is somewhat of a sponsor. And of course, now a new one we have is La Bella's Pizzeria, one of the oldest Italian restaurants in San Diego. Has been around since 1955 and has made a lot of adjustments since 1955. They have staying power, just like we talked about. Everybody take care. Have a good night, and God bless.